Welcome back to live coverage here on Yahoo Finance. I'm Zack Guzman, joined again by our friend and host of Shark Tank on ABC, Barbara Corcoran, who's with us. And Barbara, last time we had you on, we were talking about the real estate market through all this unprecedented time here when we look at it. And we got the update that U.S. mortgage rates have fallen to a record 3.43%. Of course, we are in a low-rate environment, but what does that maybe do to the housing market with all the questions out there for whether or not now is a good time to be buying a home? What does that number say to you?
It really doesn't do a darn thing for the housing market. It's kind of like the note on the refrigerator that's there all the time. Cheap money, cheap money, cheap money. How cheap? Who cares? It's cheap money out there. But what's interesting about interest rates going down this time, for the first time, the regulations or the qualifiers that the banks are putting out is more strict than ever before. They're insisting on a larger down payment, higher credit scores. Come on, help me talk today. Higher credit scores. Yeah, so this kind of waters down the whole idea that money is cheap. Because if you make it harder to reach, who cares if it's a little bit cheaper? I don't think it amounts to anything.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, it's cheap for those who can actually get the mortgage themselves. And in terms of maybe people applying for them, we did get that update as well. Mortgage applications jumping 12% when you look at the data released yesterday by the Mortgage Bankers Association. So clearly, I guess there is interest in trying to find homes out there. Does that maybe come in here to you and say, all right, this could be a turning point, assuming people get the access to the mortgage?
Well, I think the curve on the corner has to be a lot more severe to call it a turning point, but it is a ray of hope. 12% more people than last month. And think about, compare this month to last month. It's a worse month, but 12% more people asked to be pre-qualified to get a mortgage. That's usually the warm-up act that every buyer has before they go out into the market and start looking. And where those applications were is interesting. They were in the 10 largest states that had loosening up of their restrictions. So as brokers can anticipate showing homes, the customer at home decided, I better get pre-qualified. So it is very hopeful. I would not call it a turning of the corner. I think we have a little bit more work before that happens.
Yeah, I guess if you pair all of these data points that we're getting in kind of these one-off situations and pair it with the idea that we are starting to see states open up here and kind of take the initial steps to reopen their economies. Of course, we've known how hard it is to actually sell. This is something we discussed the last couple of weeks here is how hard it is to actually have these transactions go through. If you can't necessarily get someone to come through and vet the house that you're trying to buy and go through all the inspections that are necessary there, but maybe these things paired with the other optimism on the front that we would have states opening up. What do you say when you step back and look at the housing market overall to maybe someone weighing buying a home now? What's the overall takeaway they should be thinking through?
I think if you're thinking of buying a home now, and I may have mentioned this once before, I don't mean to repeat myself, but you have to stay fully informed of what's going on in your local market. The way you know in any real estate market, whether you get a valuable deal, whether you overpaid, underpaid, is not necessarily to listen to the opinion of a real estate agent who has an opinion of their own, but to really know values, to assess what's been selling, what price per square foot, to take the emotion out of it, and to stay involved in your market. And so that this is really the time, even if you can't see the houses, you can't buy the houses, this is a time where you really should be well educated. Because when that market opens up, you want to be in the best position to have the knowledge base to make a logical bid, know where you could go in low, where you have to go in high, and make yourself a deal that you could look back on and smile and say, I did a pretty damn good job there. And you can only do that if you're educated.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about, I guess, in the few weeks it's kind of crazy to look back and say, all right, we're sitting here April 30th, and just a few weeks ago, there were serious concerns about the mortgage market and a lot of renters and owners out there not able to repay some of the loans on these properties. But things have recovered a bit since then. So, I mean, when you look at that space, are those fears, again, I don't want to use the phrase turning point here since it's so early on, but if you do look at kind of just back over the last month and what we've been hearing, in your mind, are we out of the woods now? And you kind of look at it and assess, the way that we're getting updates on the front of case count, hospitalizations, and the way that states are now opening up to say, okay, maybe those fears of the worst case scenario aren't going to be playing out here on the real estate market, on the mortgage market.
I'm an optimist by nature, but no, I don't feel that way. I think we're not out of the woods until everybody has a means of being tested and there's some medication to help us with the virus. I think states can open partially, fully, but until people feel comfortable for their own safety of themselves and the family, and there's readily available testing that can be trusted, no, I don't think business overall and real estate, I don't think anything's out of the woods. I think it all rests on that one foundation, safety proven through testing. That's what I think.
Yeah. And, I think it's better to be a measured optimist than an outright optimist, too. And I think that's why we like having you on the show, because it's always based in fact. Barbara Corcoran, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us again, the host of ABC's Shark Tank. Barbara Corcoran, appreciate you taking the time. Always good
nice to see you.